G'day team, Coach Ray here. I'm a triathlon and cycling coach who specialises in coaching beginner and recreational athletes to achieve their sporting as well as their health and fitness goals. Now in today's video, I'm going to take you through a power analysis for Simon Clarke of EF Education Drapac in Stage 3, the team time trial in this year's Tour de France. Now Stage 3 was a 36-kilometre team time trial around Cholet, out and around that route there. With teams having 8 riders, the clock will stop for each team as the 4th rider crossed the line. Mitchell and Scott went out fast and were up on all other teams at the first time check, but Sky and BMC were only 1 second back and Movistar were 2 seconds behind. At the end, BMC won the stage with Sky 4 seconds down and Quick Floors 7 seconds back. Now Simon Clarke is a 31-year-old Australian riding for EF Education at Drapac, and he'll celebrate his 32nd birthday in a couple of weeks during the tour. Previously won stages in all 3 Grand Tours and rides as road captain for EF Education Drapac, and is a strong mountain climber and currently ranked 700th in the UCI World Rankings. Now Simon would have ridden hard for the benefit of the team, particularly early on, and you can almost say this is a race of 2 halves, and we'll have a look at that in a second. He possibly was under orders to do most of the work in the first half and then drift off the back once he was done, still riding hard to minimise any time lost. He ended up finishing nearly 5 minutes behind the team, and you can see, particularly with his heart rate in this first half up until that point there, and then dropping down for the second half until the finish line. Now I've basically got the route highlighted there from basically the start, whereas power in the pink line is really high. Heart rate climbs up relatively quickly through to the finish line. You can see at this point power, speed, cadence all drop off, and his heart rate drops off over time as he crosses the finish line. So for him it was 43, nearly 44 minutes. Average power of 309 watts, or a normalized power of 347. Heart rate average 159. And it'll be interesting to have a look, a bit of a comparison to yesterday when we didn't have his power data, we just had his heart rate data. I made a prediction that his threshold heart rate was probably in the mid 160s. We'll see if that comes to fruition in terms of where he was riding shortly. His variability index was 1.12, which is relatively high for a time trial, but I'll talk about that in a few minutes. So let's change that over to distance, and you can see there's some data missing here, what he did for a warm-up. Obviously that was protected information, they don't want that out, and it's been trimmed, so only the time trial data and what he did as he crossed the finish line riding back to where the team bus was parked, or the hotel they're staying in is there. So let's get rid of some of the nebulous data. Let's hide that. You can see his peak speed coming on the downhills. We'll get rid of that. RPM's cadence was relatively high, but let's look at the first half there. When he was working his hardest, doing his big effort for the team. Average heart rate of 170, so relatively high. And his average power was 366. So I've managed to work out that his functional threshold power is probably around the 340 mark. So he rode well above that for 25 minutes, which is no surprise that is a bit above it. Intensity factor of 1.14, which is reasonably high, but his variability index was 1.05, indicating that it was nice and steady. And you can see some fluctuations in here. Powers up, powers down, probably relating to when he was either on a downhill or sitting in the back, and powers up nice and high, particularly when he was on the front doing the hard yards for his team. Alrighty, let's look at the second half. So his average powers there 366 and normalized power 386. If we take the second half through to the finish line, you can see his average power's plummeted down to 235, normalized power 249. So it's a massive drop in effort, indicating that he was riding by himself and not maximizing his effort. And the variability index still relatively steady, 1.06. Everything's just moved down a touch. Its intensity factor was relatively low, 0.73, similar to what he rode or would have been riding during a stage where he's putting in a reasonable amount of effort. So it's gone down and he's only doing it for a short amount of time. Now, one thing to be aware of with these is the amount of training stress that they're building up. And if we look at the whole workout from the ride, 81 training stress score. So overall, not a very high load. It'll be interesting to compare that to if we had all his data from the stages to see how it's changing through the tour. Yeah, so pretty much a time trial of two halves for Simon. First half really hard, heart rate high, and power relatively high, and then he took it easy heading through to the finish line after he drifted off the back. Anyway, if you enjoyed this video, click the subscribe button up in the top left corner. Down the bottom right corner is a button that has got more power analysis from pros, and in the other two corners, YouTube is going to make some recommendations based on what you've watched previously. So check them out, and in the description is a written post or article about the power profiles.